In the darkened skies of World War II, a shadow moved with purpose, a regiment that defied both the enemy and their own country, doubts. They were the Soviet Union's 588th Night Bomber Regiment, an all-female squadron of pilots. Their mission? To fly into enemy lines under the cover of night in ancient wooden biplanes that creaked with every gust of wind. But what they lacked in firepower and technology, they made up for in courage and a touch of fearlessness that haunted the Germans who crossed their path. These women were not just pilots. They were specters of the night, invisible until it was too late. The Germans, unnerved by their near-silent approach, began to whisper tales of the Nachthexen, the night witches who seemed to appear from thin air, wreaking havoc from above. So terrifying was their reputation that any German pilot who managed to down one of their planes was granted the Iron Cross, a medal reserved for acts of extraordinary valor. The night witches did choose this path out of desire alone. The Nazi onslaught had driven the Soviet Union to desperation. Every city, every family under threat. In response, Marina Raskova, a celebrated aviator often compared to Amelia Earhart, took matters into her own hands. She petitioned Stalin to form a combat unit made up entirely of women. When the approval came, it was a reluctant nod from the Soviet leader, yet it marked a historic first as these women were allowed to fight on the front lines. The fledgling regiment took to the skies on June 28, 1942. Their target, Nazi headquarters, their gear outdated, Polikarpov Po-2 biplanes, flimsy by military standards and open to the deadly chill of the night. Their only tools were flashlights, compasses, and rudimentary maps. They had no parachutes, no radar, and no defenses if an enemy closed in. These planes, relics of an older age, were not built for war. They were little more than crop dusters. But in the hands of the night witches, they became instruments of fear. Stripped of resources, the women improvised. They wore hand-me-down uniforms, sometimes stuffing blankets into their oversized boots to avoid frostbite. They trained hard and learned fast. What took years for male pilots to master, they learned in months, and when they flew, they became one with the darkness, slipping in and out like phantoms. On the battlefield, their approach was almost a ritual. They flew in waves. The first plane would catch the enemy, attention, drawing the spotlights and enemy fire. The second would glide in behind, silent as a breath, dropping bombs before the enemy even knew they were there. The whoosh of their engines cut through the night like a whispered warning, just enough to send a chill down a soldier's spine. The Germans called it the sound of a witch, Sbroom, a warning of doom. But these witches also had to fight against another enemy, prejudice. Many of their male counterparts dismissed them, scoffed at their youth, and doubted their abilities. The men didn't like the little girls going to the front line. It was a man's thing, noted author Steve Prowse. But Raskova taught them resilience. In these women, the skepticism only lit a fiercer fire. Through bitter nights and brutal missions, they endured. The harsh Soviet winters, the endless barrage of enemy fire. They learned to evade, to dive, and roll their planes, barely escaping tracer rounds that would ignite the wooden frames like matchsticks if hit. The Polikarpov's slow speed saved them, making them difficult targets for faster German planes. Mission after mission, the night witches delivered their blows, dropping over 23,000 tons of bombs across enemy lines. By the end of the war, they had flown over 30,000 sorties, becoming the most decorated unit in the Soviet Air Force. But victory brought little reward. After Germany surrendered, the unit was disbanded. The celebration parades in Moscow did include them. Their planes were deemed too slow, too unfit to display. As for Raskova, her journey ended on a mission that would become her last. Her plane went down on January 4th, 1943, never to return. Her death marked a somber milestone in their story. Yet her spirit remained woven into the legacy of these remarkable women who became both legend and ghost, haunting the skies as the unforgettable night witches.